father. Or should I call you Steve? Since it's a new year, maybe we should start cooking fresh with fewer smoke alarms this time. Your cooking's improving, but I can see the stress in your eyes. Anna's mom used this Blue Apron assemble and bake thing during our playdate. Pre-chopped ingredients, over 40 grams of protein, and just one pan to clean up. She just tossed it in the oven and boom, plating like she's got followers. So go to blueapron.com, Steve. Make 2026 the year you win dinner. Blue Apron. Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Welcome back to Come Back with a Warrant podcast. I'm Brandon Dinitz.
And I'm Monica Ashak. Before we kickstart this week's episode, this is your reminder that this podcast is not legal advice. It's real, unfiltered, and for entertainment purposes only. If you need to speak with a lawyer, call one. Or better yet, call us.
Welcome back to Come Back with a Warrant podcast. I'm Brandon Dinitz.
And I'm Monica Ashak.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about privacy and the lack of privacy, whether it's jail calls, videos in public, or when your speech itself becomes a crime.
Or social media, too, actually.
Pretty much. That's kind of what I mean by your speech becomes a crime, because you can put some things up online that can really get you into trouble.
And text messages, even.
Yeah, very true.
There's so many different aspects that people want to claim that they have privacy rights, but so many times now, even with, and there's like so many things going out into AI now that can be produced now and used in court through warrants and stuff whenever they get whatever the government overcomes whatever they need to overcome to get that. But it ends up being something that people want to claim that they have, but oftentimes they don't, or they waived that when they agreed to the terms and conditions of using any sort of platform or any sort of app. So a lot of it comes down to the standard of having a reasonable expectation of privacy. So, can you record in public? The answer is yes. You can be recorded in public and can record in public. Law enforcement, that's something there's a new law that actually was passed in the state of Florida. I don't know about other states, but it came out this year, and you have to actually give emergency personnel, including law enforcement, 25 feet distance if you're going to be recording or engaging with that type of behavior, which is fine. Just don't interfere with their investigation or whatever the emergency personnel is doing over there. And that is oftentimes something that people catch resisting charges because they're in police's face and they're wanting to record, or they're not staying back, even though maybe they are 25 feet and the police are fixating. They're like, get back, get back. But it's not necessarily about the fact that you're recording. Maybe the recording is provoking them, and that's maybe triggering the situation, but always, and I'm getting a little off topic in terms of privacy, but when you're doing that, it's okay, because there is not a reasonable expectation of privacy when you're out in public, because they're engaging in whatever they're doing in the public. So you can't claim I'm in a private area when you're in public. That's also maybe people who, this might be a little wacky, but I feel like it's common, people change in their cars. You don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy there. Versus
I'm no longer changing. No, I did not know that. It's
not the same level as your home.
Yeah.
So your home has the highest protection.
My goodness, all the things that people do in their car. You have no expectation for all the people picking their nose and doing everything else in their car. You think you're private, but you're not.
Yeah.
But it's true. There's this expectation of privacy that everybody has. But, oftentimes the people that are screaming, I know my rights, I know my rights, I know my rights, are the people that are either holding the camera or saying, well, you can't record me, I know my rights. And you don't. Because the truth of the matter is you can, yes, be recorded in public, and you can record in public. And it becomes problematic at times. I'll give an example. I had a woman from Kentucky call me that her daughter is a student at FAU, and she was out with friends in Fort Lauderdale, and somebody recorded them and put it on TikTok, and the daughter was getting body shamed. And she wanted to know what could she do. And the unfortunate thing is there's really nothing that can be done. The video was taken out in public. It was the person that was recording it, and her daughter, does not have an additional expectation of privacy being out there. There's a First Amendment right that individual who took the video has, and they were recording.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for that family and for many, many others, that is the way that it is. That is the law. There are times when things can become illegal. And then we're talking about hate speech, or we're talking about just illegal activity being recorded on camera and then being shown to police. But that's a different when you don't have the right to privacy. So be aware that somebody out there filming you, whether you like it or not, if you're out in public, they're probably allowed to do it.
Unfortunately, social media has made privacy like not a thing. So like any sort of like publishing of anything online, you cannot claim privacy after doing that. You know, it's there. And even if you delete it or whatever, it's still somebody could have taken it and saved it or whatever the case is. And you can't later come back and say, no, that was private information. You were the one that put it out there. And social media, you do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy on social media platforms. And I think, you know, that comes into play a lot when people are their words are being used later against them, or their posts or whatever it is are being used against them. And this also comes up in situations with our clients when they're in custody too. And this is the biggest way that our clients, their statements are used against them if they are not speaking directly to police. It's because all jail calls are recorded. And
it again.
I feel like that thing needs to go off maybe 5 times for people to get it, because before somebody actually takes the call, it says, this call is being recorded. And for some reason, people don't believe that, or they just like I don't know, they don't think that prosecutors actually listen to it, but they listen to it.
Yeah, the message should say this call is being recorded and is going to be listened to.
Yeah, or will be used against you.
Yeah, it is being listened to. It will be used against you. I was a prosecutor. I've heard jail calls that were used against the individuals, and I thankfully have not had to deal with that as a defense attorney, where my clients' jail calls have come in against them. But it is a real fear because people are very comfortable talking on the phone and saying things about their case, about the other people involved in their case, or talking about illegal activity, and they're doing it openly on a communication that's actively being recorded and listened to.
I was in domestic violence as a public defender, the courtroom, the division. And though there's 2 charges usually in that courtroom, you really are not seeing any other charge: domestic battery or assault, and violation of injunction or a no contact order. And for every phone call from somebody who has a no contact order or an injunction against the alleged victim, for every attempt to call that person or every time they spoke on the phone, that was another count for violation of injunction or a stay away order. And not only are they going to be able to pull the fact that you called this person, they can extract the conversations and hear that you're like, please don't prosecute, and you're tackling on more charges. And it's like, what are you thinking? What are people thinking? And like, that is something that I saw often. There were times where people were charged with over 10 counts of violation of injunction or no contact. And it was because they were calling from the jail and there was no defense. It's like, we have to beg the prosecutor now to have mercy on you and your battery.
Drop some of those counts just because we're asking them to at that point.
Yeah, because.
There's no legal grounds for them to drop those counts because you're caught red-handed.
And if they wanted to go forward and not offer you anything, they could, and you would be screwed. Yeah. So it's just things like that people don't often take seriously, but it's so serious and it comes into play a lot. And I saw it way more often at the public defender's office, where I would get jail calls in my discovery. But it really, my hands are tied at that point. My hands are tied. What can I do to keep this out? Nothing. I actually can't think of even a legal basis, unless maybe that recording was broken or something and didn't inform that person that they were being recorded, which has never happened. Every single time somebody gets on a jail call, it tells them the call is being recorded. So when they tell you that, believe them, for the love of God. The other aspect, though, is that if you speak to your attorney, it's not recorded, even if you are in custody. And that comes down to attorney-client privilege. And I've had clients call me on a recorded line because I didn't reach out to them. So then I take the call. Even then, those calls, even though it says this call is being recorded, it's still a privileged call. So any communications with your attorney is private. Will the prosecutor have access to it? Yeah. Should they listen to it and use it against you? No. So, and I think they do have, I don't know how, I guess every prosecutor probably does it differently, but they probably have, they go through their cases, they go and check the call queue or whatever they log into to see if they have access, whatever records they can get for
It's
Securus.
a case-by-case basis,
Yeah.
but if there's a defendant that's in custody and you need to see what's going on, then you can log in to the system, check what type of phone calls they're making, who they're talking to, what they're talking about, and
Mom, Dad, I just have to say, it breaks my heart watching you stress over dinner every night. This year, I don't want you doing the fridge stare down. Hot take, with the new Blue Apron, eating healthy is easy. They've got pre-made and one-pan meals with plenty of balanced nutrition. No subscription needed. You could be plating like a chef instead of negotiating with leftovers. Make it your healthy, tasty, and easy 2026 dinner resolution. Just saying.
Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
that's that. There's certainly no right to privacy in that situation.
There's no right to privacy, period, in custody.
Yeah, no.
Unless you literally
So-
accept if it's related to your lawyer. That's the only time. And that's because it's privilege, not because you have a general reasonable expectation of privacy while in custody. You don't at all.
Right.
You share a space with so many other people, which is interesting because I had a case where my client was being charged for, and this is a little whatever, I'm just going to say it. He was being charged or accused of jacking off to a prison guard.
Okay.
So
I had those jailhouse jerker cases when I was a prosecutor.
yeah, and
Those aren't fun for anybody,
but
except for the
defense-
guy.
Yeah, I guess. And the defense actually never wins those cases, I hear. But I won that shit.
All right, well, now I'm very curious to hear how you won one of those cases.
Oh my God, it was such an interesting case. But my defense was that he was in basically his home and it was a private area because the allegation was that he was like, there's setups for when you're in custody, and obviously depends on the detention center, but in the area in which this client was in, he was in like an open bay setup. So it's kind of like bunks or a bunch of random beds in the unit. And he was at his bed and the guard was, I don't remember how many feet away, but she was not directly in front of him. And he got out of the shower, he goes to his bunk or his bed, and he's like cleaning himself up. And our defense was also that he had a medical condition and he was bleeding and from like his lower area and needed to like clean it up, whatever. He ended up testifying and showing that he had a gunshot wound in his back that went through like from a prior injury. And that's why he had to clean himself up. We didn't present an expert or anything. He just
Right.
got on the stand and testified. He did it so beautifully. And obviously there's like issues and concerns with like the jury hearing that this person's in custody and that this person's been shot before and like maybe involved in like street involvement or whatever it is. And so he testified really well to his injuries and like what he was suffering from and why he was bleeding and how he had to clean it up. And he was found not guilty. But part of my argument was that where is he supposed to do this? This is where he lives.
Well, yeah.
And obviously I cross-examined her on what she saw or what she didn't see. And I was like, please describe my client's penis.
You're talking about the guard? Yeah.
The correctional officer. But that was a really fun case to try. And, my client was maxed out. So it was really like a free trial because he was in custody on another case. So, which, if you're maxed out on a case, and just for people who don't know, if you're maxed out and you get the opportunity to try a case, you really can be sentenced to the max, which if you've served it already, you can't, there's really
Getting out of custody.
you're getting out of jail anyway. So it's like, there's no point in not trying the case if you have an actual triable fact or, it's like a disputed fact. So that's always a cool thing to do. But that often came up in public defense and not in private because usually people get out of custody.
Yeah, but you got this guy off
Yeah.
a second time.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. That's so funny. A second time. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, listen, I don't know what happened the first time. It's not my business.
Well, yeah, okay. Allegedly.
Well, even if it did happen, it's still not my business.
Yeah. The first trial I ever had was one of those
Really?
cases. Yeah. And we lost.
Yeah?
I was a prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
The judge granted the judgment of acquittal, the first JOA. The judge did not believe
The correctional officer.
The correctional officer showed up super late for trial to begin with, and the judge was not happy
It's not a good look.
And he didn't find her credible at all and granted the JOA.
And a JOA.
And it was my first trial ever. We were just like, and that means that the case didn't even make it to
the
a jury.
jury, yeah.
The judge said, "Nope, there's not enough here." That was my first ever trial. I'm just standing there as a prosecutor. I had never tried a case before, and the first ever case, you get a judgment of acquittal, and that's the worst thing that can happen for a prosecutor. And I was like, well, can only go up from here. So
Yeah, it's true. I felt that way about my first trial too.
Yeah.
Against you.
all right.
To be fair, he didn't ask for jail,
I did not ask for jail.
but the judge was like, jail. And I
okay,
was
well,
like,
that's that's not my fault. But yeah.
but yeah, so when it comes to, these are our little side quest conversations
Yeah,
about
I
our,
love that. But that's like one of the best parts about this show is that we can go into these like side stories that are totally related to this. I think that's what makes us so relatable as
Yeah.
co-hosts is that we, we're talking about this shit, but we've actually lived it and we have really funny stories about it.
yeah, like I could not make this story up about this guy jacking off to a
Nope.
correctional officer, which
Allegedly.
is often, that's like a common thing. That's a common charge. Like,
Well, the other thing is, and you said this, and I'm going to say it from the perspective of a former prosecutor, but a lot of those guys do it because it's a freebie trial and they're not ready to go to some of the guys that are sent to the Department of Corrections and they're waiting to go to the DOC and they're like, well, you know what? I'm going to hang around for a few more weeks. And they get themselves into some sort of trouble at the county jail and now they have a new case. And they get to go to county court and they get, the field trip aspect.
it's fun.
Right. It's not fun, but it's like there are certain people that are doing it just to waste time and just to play games.
It works.
It does, but they kind of changed that situation to some extent because most of those cases, if I'm not mistaken, are now handled either internally or they've changed the charge to be a felony.
Yes, they've made it a felony.
Because it's a felony, people are like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's so true. They did make it a felony. Mine was actually downfiled from the felony to a misdemeanor for some reason, but maybe they found that he actually had a defense.
Yeah, no,
But it's funny because I did hear that oftentimes defense don't win, but yours in your case and in
That's
my case
two
I did.
right
That's
there,
two.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so going back to our topic of privacy, the other aspect is that, and you briefly mentioned this, is hate crimes. And so like when does speech go from protected as freedom of speech in the First Amendment to a crime? And that's something that I think a lot of people, this is a really big issue, I think, when people are like, oh, well, I have freedom of speech, so I can say whatever I want. And to a degree,
right.
but when you couple what you're saying with like an actual like threat that you can carry out, like an assault, that becomes a hate crime. If you're like saying something like racist at the same time or something, or it's whatever speech is motivated by like religion or race or gender against like certain communities, plus any sort of like criminal act, whether it is actually carried out or not, such as an assault or whatever, or maybe criminal mischief. That could be considered a hate crime. That's when it rises to the level of a crime. And a lot of offices take it very seriously. Palm Beach County recently opened up its own unit just for hate crimes, like a hate crimes division. And it all funnels into that division, anything related to any sort of hate crime. And we see a lot of different scenarios where it's like becomes a religious thing or a race thing.
Right.
And it's scary because then there's like text messages shown in court, things you thought would never be shown to a judge or a jury that comes out into the open.
Right. I mean, the hate speech protections are out there for a good reason. The types of things that I saw as a prosecutor or that are just recent cases and recent examples, the anti-Semitic packets being put on people's lawns in Boca Raton, and that's just a local example. And there were issues prosecuting those people. The former state attorney, I think what he did was he was prosecuting them as littering offenses to an extent. And that's how he was trying to prosecute this, hate crime. He was having trouble doing it because it's not easy to do. But yes, you're right. It's the scenario has to be coupled with this crime that is going to potentially be carried out or threatened to be carried out. The idea of getting in trouble for the things you say has to be coupled with something happening or the idea that you are about to incite something or start something happening. That's where you get into it's not allowed anymore. And now the speech is not protected anymore. And in most circumstances, that's there for a good reason, right? You don't shout bomb on an airplane. You don't shout fire in a movie theater. You don't do that.
Yeah.
My wife watches Titanic on airplanes, but I think that's not a good idea to give an example of people doing things that you shouldn't be doing. I don't know why that example came in my head.
But also hate crimes, it comes down to also like what it's motivated by. Like, are you, like you said,
Mom, Dad, I just have to say, it breaks my heart watching you stress over dinner every night. This year, I don't want you doing the fridge stare down. Hot take, with the new Blue Apron, eating healthy is easy. They've got pre-made and one-pan meals with plenty of balanced nutrition. No subscription needed. You could be plating like a chef instead of negotiating with leftovers. Make it your healthy, tasty, and easy 2026 dinner resolution. Just saying.
Get 50% off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code LISTEN50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
anti-Semitic, you know? If it's motivated to target a specific group of people and it's like a derogatory term that you're often like, that's often we see in like either text or whatever. I always see text messages. That's why I keep saying it. But also it could be social media. It could be any sort of piece of evidence, video even. And someone's screaming some derogatory term towards a certain community and it's motivated usually by like race or religion. That's the most common too. And that's when it's people are like, oh, well, I have a right to free speech. Like, you don't have a right to say those things towards certain people and threaten them. Oftentimes it's threats, and that's assault. So if you have the apparent ability to carry it out. So that is a huge part of the privacy issue that people think they have. It's like, oh, you really don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy when it comes to this stuff because now it's evidence. Someone turned it over to the police and now it's open for them to investigate and now prosecute you with your words that you sent to somebody. And it's always over something stupid. It's always like some sort of like, I don't even know, like even neighborly things. It's like they'll then...
I see that constantly.
It's always like...
neighbor disputes.
So dumb. It's like, really? Like, I mean, like I'm definitely not dismissing any sort of hate crime, but it's like, could have been avoided. Like you could have just regulated your emotions and not had to have put that out there or threatened this person because there was, at the end of the day, you probably weren't actually serious about the threat that you were making, or maybe you like lost it and damaged someone's property and said some term, like things like that. Or like people put like, there was a video I posted on my Instagram about a woman, she vandalizing someone's car, and it was like an anti-Semitic thing that she was putting on someone's Tesla. And the Tesla has 8 cameras on the car. And so the cameras on the car captured it and it was used as evidence in court. And that was a hate crime. Like those are hate crimes. You can't do that. And then it's obviously can be enhanced based on the state you're in. Right. If it's an enhanceable offense. Here, it's not. It's just like it's like specific to hate crimes, but it can be considered as an aggravating factor, I'm sure, with the sentencing if the court is considering that. And the facts of the case, which they do. So
also makes any situation worse.
Exactly. It's not like just because it's not an enhanceable offense doesn't mean like that it's like you're getting a freebie. Like, no, like, everybody's going to hear that you said that.
Right. The fact that you were beating someone up is bad enough, but then the fact that you throw in a racial slur or something against somebody's religion or sexual identity, that is now changing the situation and making it way more serious than it was. And you're, causing a world of problems for yourself and making your lawyer's job harder in the future as well.
Yes.
Because a simple bar fight takes on a different meaning when your client decides that they should also throw in some racial epithets in the framework.
And it's used to show your intent too,
right?
Which is worse oftentimes because state doesn't always have, or the government doesn't always have something to show that you were intentionally committing an act. And so and they have to look for other pieces of evidence to show that. But when you're like actually screaming a slur or derogatory term towards someone while you're beating up on them or whatever, you are giving it to them on a silver platter. So like, why make the situation worse? Obviously don't do it in general. But people really just are so unregulated. They don't care. And it's like oftentimes people that are like off the wall and they just like lose it. And it's always over something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. So really to wrap up what we're talking about today, the expectation of privacy doesn't really exist in a lot of areas. Okay. Whether it's people filming you out in public and putting it on social media, whether it's jail phone calls, whether it's hate crimes, or crimes that get escalated because of or really the ways that your speech turns into a crime, however that happens, be it through a hate crime or otherwise. These are different examples of where privacy considerations don't apply. And I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm wrapping up nothing.
No, it's good. And also, AI stuff is like a huge thing now where people are like giving their heart and soul into GPT, and people are just like giving all of their info in there, and then somehow it's like regenerated into the internet, and people are finding that information somehow. I've been reading about that. I don't know if that's like completely accurate either,
Well,
but
great, Monica. Thanks for scaring the shit out of all of us.
I use chat all the time, and now I'm like, everyone just knows it's gonna have to know my business.
Yeah, I mean, it is the future
Yeah, it is, and it's scary.
and the present.
Yeah, it's scary because technology really does change the whole entire idea of privacy and what privacy is today. So if you like listening to us, make sure you check the show notes, comment, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, come back with a warrant.pod on all platforms. And if you don't like listening to us,
Come back with a warrant.
Here at Blue Apron, we know exactly how hectic school nights can be. That's why we created Assemble and Bake. Delicious one-pan meals that make family dinner simple. Just assemble the pre-chopped ingredients and put the pan in the oven to bake. Then you're free to help out with that last-minute diorama. Shop Assemble and Bake at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.